The night shift always smelled like disinfectant and tired dreams, and for Marcus Hale it smelled like survival at 2:17 a.m. In a glass and steel tower where billion-dollar decisions were usually made over catered lunches and polished slides, a single dad janitor stood alone in an AI research wing, wiping fingerprints off a whiteboard no one else had touched in hours. The problem sketched across it was worth over $100 million, and the company had been bleeding quietly for weeks because no one could solve it. Marcus didn't know the price tag. He only knew that the symbols felt familiar in a way his own heartbeat did. He paused, rag in one hand, marker still uncapped from habit, and in seconds the life he had buried under mops and overtime began to surface. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of people who are overlooked every day, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this matter because people like Marcus exist everywhere. Marcus had not planned to be invisible. Years ago, before the world collapsed into daycare schedules and grocery math, he had been a systems engineer with a mind that saw patterns the way others saw color. 5. Then his wife died suddenly and the heir left his life. The job went next, sacrificed on the altar of custody hearings, sleepless nights, and a daughter who woke screaming at 3 a.m. He took the janitor position at Helix Dynamics because it paid reliably, came with health insurance, and didn't punish him for leaving early when the school nurse called. During the day, he packed lunches and practiced spelling words at the kitchen table. At night, he cleaned labs where his old life glowed silently on screens he wasn't supposed to touch. The AI wing was Marcus's least favorite floor, and secretly his favorite. Least favorite because the security was tight and mistakes were noticed. Favorite because the walls talked. Equations, flow diagrams, performance graphs frozen mid-panic. He cleaned methodically, the way grief teaches you to move. One small square at a time. He read everything without meaning to. He remembered more than he wanted. That night, the board showed a recursive optimization loop spiraling out of control, bleeding compute, choking the system with its own ambition. Marcus recognized it instantly, like seeing an old friend standing in the wrong clothes. The company had been trying to scale a predictive engine for global logistics. Their AI was brilliant but brittle, overfitting in real time, devouring resources. They had thrown teams, money, and sleepless consultants at it. The problem wasn't intelligence, it was humility. Marcus set the rag down. He capped the marker, then uncapped it again. He told himself he was just cleaning smudges. He told himself he wouldn't leave a trace. His hand moved anyway. He simplified the loop, collapsed redundant nodes, rewrote a constraint that was fighting itself. He didn't annotate. He didn't explain. He just fixed it the way you fix a leaky faucet at home, not for applause, but because water shouldn't be wasted. He stepped back. The board looked calmer, balanced. He wiped the marker dust from his glove and finished his round. At home later that morning, his daughter Lily slept with her hair fanned across the pillow, one arm wrapped around the stuffed astronaut he'd bought her at a thrift store. Marcus made pancakes, packed her bag, and forgot the board entirely. Life does that. It keeps you busy so you don't remember the moments that could change everything. By noon, the building was buzzing. The AI engine had stabilized overnight. Costs plummeted. Projections realigned. A silent hemorrhage stopped. Engineers stared at dashboards in disbelief. Alerts that had screamed for weeks went quiet. The CEO, Evelyn Ross, was pulled out of a board call and walked straight to the AI wing. She had built Helix Dynamics from a rented office and a stubborn vision, and she knew when something felt wrong in a good way. The logs pointed to an update at 2:19 a.m., no credentials, no deployment. Just a change as if the system had exhaled. Security footage showed a janitor at the board. Evelyn didn't summon him in anger. She didn't fire off emails or demand explanations. She waited. That evening, as Marcus pushed his cart down the corridor, he noticed people staring at him with a curiosity that made his shoulders tense. He reached the AI wing and froze. The board was untouched, preserved like an artifact. Engineers stood around it, careful not to breathe. Evelyn stepped forward, eyes sharp, posture calm. Marcus felt the old fear rise, the one that tells you you've crossed a line you can't uncross. What happened next shocked the whole company, not because it was loud, but because it was rare. Evelyn didn't scold him. She didn't ask how a janitor dared to write on a board. She asked him to sit. She asked him to walk her through what he saw. Marcus spoke in long, careful explanations the way you do when you've been silent for years and don't trust your voice. He talked about constraints and runaway loops, about designing systems that fail gently. He talked about learning from mistakes because life had taught him that harshly. The room leaned in. Titles evaporated. $100 million of panic turned into understanding. Evelyn listened without interrupting. When he finished, she nodded once, like someone closing a door with intention. She asked about his background. He told the truth without embellishment. Single dad, night shift, old degree gathering dust. He mentioned Lily because Lily was the axis around which everything turned. Evelyn excused the room and made a call that would ripple through the company. By the end of the night, an internal memo landed in every inbox. It announced the creation of a new applied systems resilience group effective immediately with Marcus Hale as its lead architect. It outlined a mentorship program to identify talent in unexpected places. It adjusted company policy to allow flexible hours for caregivers. It ended with a line that people would quote for years. Brilliance is not a job title, and dignity is not a perk. The shock wasn't the promotion, it was the apology. Evelyn stood in the cafeteria the next morning and apologized publicly for a culture that had walked past genius because it wore the wrong uniform. She apologized for the times the company had valued polish over wisdom, speed over care. Then she handed Marcus a badge that didn't erase his past but finally acknowledged it. Marcus didn't become a miracle overnight. He struggled with imposter syndrome the way he struggled with everything new. He learned how to lead without hiding. He asked for help when daycare fell through. He brought Lily to the office on Saturdays where she colored at a table while adults argued kindly about systems. The company changed in small ways first. People stopped whispering about janitors and started saying names. Engineers left whiteboards intact at night, curious what the walls might teach them by morning. Financially, the fix saved more than money. It saved morale. The AI engine scaled with grace, and Helix Dynamics earned a reputation not just for innovation, but for humanity. Marcus's group focused on resilience, on designing systems that remembered people. He insisted on documentation that anyone could read. He insisted on humility reviews after every success. He never forgot the smell of disinfectant at 2:17 a.m. Or the way invisibility can make you brave in the worst ways. At home, Lily asked why Daddy smiled more. Marcus told her that sometimes the world notices you when you stop trying to disappear. He told her that kindness is a skill like math, and you can practice it until it changes things. They celebrated with pancakes and extra blueberries. Near the end of the year, Evelyn invited Marcus to speak at a company-wide meeting. He didn't give a speech about genius. He talked about trust. He talked about the people who clean the floors where ideas are born, the assistants who catch mistakes, the parents who juggle lives between alarms. He asked the room to widen its lens. The applause lasted longer than he expected. If this story has touched your heart, if it reminded you of someone who works hard without being seen, please take a moment now to like the video, share it, and let us know in the comments. Your engagement tells us these stories matter, and it helps them reach the people who need them most. Just before the ending, here's a special request. Comment the word "is seen" if you believe everyone deserves to be recognized for who they truly are, no matter their job title. Marcus still walks the building at night sometimes, not because he has to, but because he wants to remember. He touches the whiteboard gently, grateful for the quiet moment that changed everything. The world didn't reward him for being a janitor who solved a $100 million problem. It rewarded him for being human in a place that forgot how. And in that recognition, a company found its soul, a daughter found her hero closer to home, and a single dad learned that the parts of himself he buried to survive were the very ones that would lift him back into the light. The days after the announcement felt unreal for Marcus, like walking through a life that had been written for someone else. He still arrived early, still packed Lily's lunch with little notes folded into the napkin, still checked the weather before leaving the apartment so she wouldn't forget her jacket. But now, when he walked into Helix Dynamics, people looked him in the eyes. They nodded. They nodded. Some smiled with a respect that felt heavier than any mop he had ever pushed. The building hadn't changed, yet everything had. Marcus's new office was modest by executive standards, a glass room with a whiteboard that stretched across one wall and a desk that faced the city. The first time he sat there alone, the silence overwhelmed him. He remembered cleaning spaces like this, empty and echoing, wondering what kind of people filled them during the day. Now he was one of those people, and the thought made his chest tighten. He placed a photo of Lily on the desk, her front teeth crooked from a half-lost baby tooth, and the world steadied itself again. The real challenge came quickly. Solving one problem was easy compared to changing a culture. Some senior engineers welcomed Marcus openly, curious and humbled. Others struggled, not out of cruelty but out of fear. If a janitor could solve what they couldn't, what did that say about them? Marcus felt the tension in meetings, in pauses that lingered a second too long. He met it with patience. He asked questions instead of giving orders. He listened the way he had learned to listen to a grieving child at night. Slowly, walls softened. He created a weekly session called Invisible Fixes, where anyone could present a small improvement they'd made that no one noticed. The first week, only 2 people showed up. By the third month, the room was full. An intern shared a shortcut that saved hours. A facilities worker explained a ventilation tweak that reduced server heat. Applause became normal, not for ego, but for effort. People started to feel safe again. At home, life was still life. Lily got sick the week Marcus was supposed to present to the board. He canceled without hesitation. When he apologized later, Evelyn waved it off and told him about missing her own son's recital years ago, a regret she still carried. Policies turned into practices. Helix Dynamics became known as a place where parents didn't have to choose between love and ambition. Applications flooded in. So did loyalty. One evening, months later, Marcus stayed late, not working, just thinking. The AI wing hummed softly around him, no longer angry, no longer hungry. He thought about the version of himself who had stood there with a rag and a marker, convinced that being unseen was safer. He wished he could tell that man that survival doesn't have to mean silence forever. The company's turnaround became a case study. Business magazines wrote about the $100 million save, about the janitor who rewrote the future. Marcus avoided interviews, but he agreed to one condition. The article would include the names of the night staff. It did. People noticed. On Lily's birthday, Helix Dynamics sent a small cake to the apartment with a card signed by dozens of hands. Lily read every name carefully, as if memorizing proof that her father belonged somewhere big. That night, as she fell asleep, she asked if she could work at Helix someday. Marcus told her she could work anywhere she wanted, and that places worth working for would always make room for who she was. The shock that had rippled through the company settled into something deeper and steadier. Respect became habit. Curiosity replaced arrogance. And Marcus, the single dad who once cleaned up other people's brilliance, learned that sometimes the most powerful systems are built not on intelligence alone, but on empathy, recognition, and the courage to see the person standing quietly in front of you. If this continuation moved you, if it made you think about the unseen heroes in your own life, please like, comment, and share this video. Your support keeps stories like this alive. And before you go, leave a comment with one word that describes how this story made you feel. Sometimes being heard begins with a single word.